Hello, this is Scadio with Ecstatic Hearts, here to talk to you again for another Tantra Talk Tuesday about acceptance of all is a key to enlightenment. So what do I mean about acceptance of all? Well, let's start off with something I learned as a Buddhist a while back, which was the cause of all suffering, according to Buddhist beliefs, is duality. When you're basically taking something and saying it's good or bad or right or wrong, it's us versus them, that creates suffering for a variety of reasons. For one thing, if you are attempting to connect with someone, let's say your spouse, and you're making her wrong about something, do you think that she can feel loved and accepted during that time? When someone's judging you and thinking you're bad and wrong, do you feel loved and accepted? I mean, whenever we are in that process of an us versus them, we're creating artificial separation, which doesn't need to be there. We're all fundamentally the same. We're all energy. We're all connected. We're all one. And when we think of ourselves as separate, that is when we get into trouble. Because not only does it cut out love and connection, but it also creates artificial limitations of scarcity. It makes us think that we're separate from each other, and that gives us permission to then hurt or steal or harm other people in order to get our own desires when we think that they're separate from ourselves versus just an extension of ourselves. So let's look at multiple interpretations. Here's another thing that people get really caught up in is they want to be right. We want to be right so bad. It's like, I don't know why it's a need of humankind, but we will go to wars over it. We will die for it. We will, we have this belief system and we are so attached to that belief that we do crazy things in order to prove to other people that ours is the one right way. The problem with that is that two people, just for example, can have the exact same event happen to them. In fact, 10 people can have the exact same event happen to them, and all 10 of them will have different experiences because of their interpretations. And their interpretations are pretty much based on their past experiences and how they evaluate things, and which everyone's unique. And so we believe that our interpretations are reality, not the actual event itself. And so basically you have 10 separate people, and you can all have 10 very different experiences from the exact same set of circumstances that happened because of our interpretations. And instead of saying which one is the one right interpretation, which is the one truth, truth is subjective. All of us are equally valid in our interpretations of what we think we experienced. And so, there's room enough in this world for all levels of interpretation, all choices, all perspectives, and so when we can appreciate the diversity and the beauty and the spiciness that brings to life, then we don't have to be in resistance. We can be, yes, I can see how your view is valid for you and my view is valid for me. And we can learn and grow from each other, because then we have access to new interpretations that might be more serving of us or might forward us more in our own goals and desires than what we had before, because what we had before was only our past. So only by experiencing new experiences and having encounters with other people can we grow, and which is fundamentally what we're here to do. The other thing is that the universe is infinitely abundant. We think of things as scarce, and we think of it that there's a limitation, but it's like, well, I can't have this much money because I'll be taking it from someone else. Resources are actually infinite, especially with technology. I mean, it's kind of like we don't say, I'm really grateful for my health and well-being for the last, month. So today I think I'm going to be sick just so someone else can be healthy. It's like it's stupid, right? We don't think that way because we know that we are responsible for our own unique individual health, and we are responsible for our own wealth. We are responsible for everything that happens in our lives, and we have access to. We're all infinitely available to have access to the abundance, the beauty, the everything that we want. We are connected to Source. We have that potential if we just get out of our own ways and we just accept all the abundance and love that's available for us. So, one of the things that I like to do with Tantra philosophy is when I'm choosing between two things, that's the artificial scarcity, when I think that I have to have X or Y, I go with option Z, which is both and more, please. And this one philosophy has actually created a lot of interesting things. It's like, for instance, if we're eating, and Melanie wants to go one restaurant and I want to go to another, one of the things that I tend to do is go to both, and then just for fun, just to like show the world that we have infinite consciousness, we'll go to like a third restaurant for dessert, and have appetizer, main course, dessert, and maybe that's a little crazy, but it's a fun exercise. And, maybe something simpler is if you're at a restaurant and you can't choose between two entrees because they both look delectable, I choose both, and then I take the rest home for leftovers, or just choose, which one I like better and eat that. This can also be used in like work. Instead of working from the same office every day where I'm like in a cubicle and whatnot, I say, well, how can I be productive and have some fun at the same time? So I might go to Barton Springs, which is a local, pool, which is really nice and great scenery. Or I might go work at Hippie Hollow, or I might, take phone calls from a jacuzzi, or I might, go play naked while I am writing or something. It's like you can do pretty much. Think of ways that you can have fun and maybe connect with nature and maybe connect with people at the same time as you want to get your goals done. That makes, mixing. I used to think of like work and play as two separate things, and I kind of put on my workout or my play hat. And now I'm looking at ways I can have both, so that my work is play, that there's no distinction. That way I'm playing all the time. Another thing too is like if an emergency comes up and like I have a date night or something, instead of canceling the date night, which I would have done in the past, I'm now saying, okay, well, who can I delegate this to? Who can I give this project to that might learn and grow from it? How can I have both? Maybe Melanie drives and I knock it out of my iPhone, or maybe I just choose to make myself super efficient the next day and really work on what's necessary and make myself better in that way, and then knock out the other thing. There's lots of different scenarios here. The key is to come from this perspective of how can I have it all? That's a good question, is how can I have everything I want? Another quick example is that if we're at a workshop, like Melanie, there was a workshop on relationships I really want to go to, and it was Melanie's birthday, and she planned this thing, and the old me would have just said, you know what? I have a commitment to Melanie's birthday, and that's the way it's going to be, so I can't do this workshop. But then I said, wait a minute, what's the experience? Instead of getting attached to the result, if you can look at what's the experience I want, what's the benefit that underneath this activity that I want to do, and it's for Melanie to feel loved and appreciated, and I also want to grow and learn. It's like we want the same thing, because I said, well, hell, Melanie, what about I go to this workshop and so that I can learn how to be better at relating and connecting, which is going to enhance our relationship. Isn't that the best gift that I can give you? And then can we then reschedule your birthday on another day, and then you can have another birthday, and then you'll have two beautiful gifts. And that's what we did. And she ended up coming to the relationship workshop with me. And then we both had, and then actually those people celebrated her birthday then. So she had two birthdays, and it was a lovely experience. And I think it's enhanced our relationship in the future. So, when you're thinking of, I have to come from either or, think of abundance. How you can have both and all. All right, so what we resist persists. And this is one of the keys to acceptance, because if you are in resistance to something, you are maintaining it in space. For instance, where our attention goes, our energy flows and results follow. So if I am thinking, don't think of a pink elephant, don't think of a pink elephant, don't think of a pink elephant, are you thinking of a pink elephant? It's like when we're like putting our energy in, and like, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen, we're energetically, subconsciously manifesting the very thing that we're in resistance to. And the more emotional, the more passionate we are, the more in resistance we are, the more we are actually manifesting that very thing that we don't want. And the way out of this trap is just to accept. Take a breath. Allow that what is, and then we can create whatever interpretation we want about it, maybe a forwarding one, and then move forward. Because as long as we are stuck in the past, as long as we are focused on what happened and tried to be in, or what we don't want in the future, which is basically a reflection of what happened in the past, then we are, we can't get past it. So the key here, it's kind of like, you got resentment. You know, if you have some resentment against someone, and it's kind of like I'm drinking poison while I'm waiting for the other person to die. You know, and I'm like feeling myself, you know, be suffering, and I'm in angst and pain and suffering, and I'm thinking about them, and they might not even notice, you know. It's like, it's kind of ridiculous what we do, you know. When the way to get through this is forgiveness, you know, and we think that forgiveness is for the other person, but really forgiveness is for ourselves. Really forgiveness is for us to accept at some level what happened so that we can move on, you know, and say, you know, I forgive that. Let's not stay attached and stuck to that, because, you know, if you don't forgive someone for a wrong, if you are holding it against them, you're only perpetuating suffering for yourself. So forgiveness is one of the keys to moving forward. You know, let's look at contrast. So contrast is one of the keys to growth. And what I mean by this is that, you know, I believe that we're spiritual beings, that we chose to be here in these physical bodies to encounter contrast. Like, you know, we don't really know what, you know, what we like, and we don't know what we don't like. Just close to duality. But we, you know, are going through this life, and we experiencing all these things, and like we have suffering, and we have pain, or we have uncomfortableness. And by the way, suffering, I think, is more of an interpretation of an event that occurred that we self-perpetuate in ourselves, that is more of an interpretation. Like, you know, I can experience pain. I go, oh, look, I can come from a curiosity versus critic perspective. And I go, oh, look at this lesson that life has to teach me. And I can accelerate from that and move on and grow. Or I could say, oh, life is so bad and wrong and terrible. And, oh, why does this always happen to me? And I can spin myself out into suffering by being in resistance, right? So my invitation to you is, when something happens that you don't like, something that's uncomfortableness, to come from curiosity more so than critic. We always are going to have both, but it's like, why is this happening? What's the lesson here? What can I grow and learn from this experience? What's going on here? Because, you know, I believe that one of the reasons we're here and we experience suffering in all of its forms is to learn and grow, because we learn more from those experiences than we do from the positive ones. You know, it's like, I look back in my life, and some of my key growth experiences were some of the most challenging, difficult, and I would say hard experiences of my life. And, you know, I could look back at those and go, you know, I didn't want that to happen, but then I wouldn't be who I was. I wouldn't have the skill set that I want in order to make the difference that I want in the world. You know, it's like everything, I look back and everything was really perfect, you know, and maybe I didn't learn the lessons I needed as easily or as fun or as simply as I'd like, but I needed whatever happened to happen in order for me to have that aha, in order to grow, in order to shift. And it was sometimes, you know, you need to hit rock bottom before you can see the way out and into the light. So, you know, so my invitation is to you is that look at your biggest challenges as your growth opportunities instead of something that's bad and wrong. Look at it as that's what we're here for. We're here to experience all that life has to offer so that we can figure out what our ideal is and we can grow from that. You know, one of the things here is I was reading a great book called Asking is Given by Jerry and Esther Hicks, and I recommend it, by the way. And one of the things they talk about is don't put unwanted ingredients in your pie. Now, one of the things here is that people, I think, get these two collapsed, is acceptance and allowing are two different things. Like, if someone is being, let's say, verbally abusive to me, I can accept that that's their situation right now, and that I can forgive them and love them, and I don't have to subject myself to it. So I can leave, or I can make a request of what my boundaries are. I can choose to do what I want in my experience in life and not subject myself to that, right? So I'm not saying you have to be passive and allow whatever you don't want to happen to you and just say that's what it is. I'm saying that you don't want to be in resistance to it, and you want to see if maybe you can support them in shifting, and you want to be an example of love and light that they can grow into. But it's not your job to fix people who don't want fixing, and there's nothing wrong with them. They're learning their lessons in their own time. They're here to have their experience, just like you're here to have your experience. And it's not our job to try to control the world, or to fix everything that doesn't fit our view of the world. And so one of the things they talk about as a metaphor is like, don't put unwanted ingredients in your pie. And I thought this was really neat. So it's like we're all, in our kitchen of life, and we all have access to infinite number of ingredients, and we're all our chefs, and we're all creating our own unique pie, our own experience of the world. And so when we're like taking different ingredients from it, it's like, ooh, I want some of this, I want some love, I want some adventure, I want some excitement, and this is the pie I'm creating for myself, right? Now, if someone else is saying, oh, I want some suffering, I want some pain, I want a breakup with my ex to learn a lesson, then let them have that experience. They can choose to learn through and grow through their suffering, and I can choose to learn and grow through orgasm. But I don't have to be in resistance to the other ingredients in my kitchen just because I'm choosing not to use them, right? Just because someone else is having suffering, or, it's like I could take that ingredient, put it in my pie, but I don't necessarily want to, and that's okay. But I don't have to like try to eliminate that ingredient because other people might want the very thing that you don't. And you might want the very thing that you think you don't now, because we grow and learn. It's like, I didn't think I wanted that experience, but now that I have a different perspective and I've grown, maybe I'm ready for that ingredient now. Maybe I want that. And the beautiful thing about diversity is that it's not our job to help other people make their pies, but it is an opportunity for us to share our pies and say, hey, this is my pie. You want a bite? Do you like it? And then I'll try theirs and go, ooh, I like that. I think I'm going to add that ingredient to my pie. And maybe you can, and they're inspired. They can choose to add an ingredient from your experience into theirs. I mean, that's one of the ways we can support and grow each other, but it's not the same thing as saying their pie is bad and wrong. The way they're cooking isn't the right way, and that mine is the one right way. So that's how we can all, get along and just make our own unique, wonderful experience. So now the other part is how to deal with evil, right? Because a lot of people are like, well, that's all well and good, but what about evil? And this is an interesting one because evil for me is a perspective. Like, I don't really believe in, like, people are intrinsically evil. I think that people are intrinsically good. I really believe that we're all divine. We're all connected to source. We're all essentially love. And what happens is we get confused and experiences happen, and we basically get disconnected from that truth. And so I look at evil people as ignorant, confused, sick, maybe, and I look at them as with sympathy as like, how do we heal them? Most abuse is a cycle, right? Like if there's a child molester, for instance, which is, I could qualify as one of the most heinous things out there. They are victims themselves, almost virtually, I don't know what the percentage is, but most of the time, they were victims of abuse themselves, and they're just perpetuating a cycle. The way to break the cycle isn't to punish them, say they're wrong, make them bad, resist. It's to heal them. It's to help them learn to grow beyond that. It's to heal their own suffering so that they don't recreate the suffering in their pain bodies and other people's pain bodies. And so, it's like, so when I see something that I don't like, I don't necessarily accept it in my life. Like, we might, for the while, still need to, let's say, lock people up for the safety of the community. There are times we need to protect ourselves. And I think that we've taken it too far in this country. I mean, it's like, punishment is different than rehabilitation. And punishment never does anything but perpetuates more of the same. So if someone is, let's say, doing evil acts, or, and again, doing an act that we don't want in our pie, then what we can do is protect ourselves. But it's like, in Scandinavia, they now rehabilitate to such an extent. They're criminals. They don't even have prisons anymore in some parts of Scandinavia. It's like they've done away with prisons because they realize that punishment doesn't work, and rehabilitation is the key. And so what I'm suggesting is that's the perspective we want to come from, is how to help support and heal people that work better for the collective group experience. And then here's something else happened. It's interesting. I was in Bali for a 30-day tribal Tantra retreat, and I started having experiences with past lives. And now I know this is weird. I didn't really believe in past lives till I started experiencing them. But one of the things that I had a pattern of is I was a warrior. I was a fighter in the past. And what when I first had these like recollections, I felt a lot of shame. I felt a lot of guilt. It was like really shame of like, for all the wrong that I perpetuated. I killed people in the past, again, past lives, not this life. And, but I was feeling all this like angsty stuff around it. And I was looking at it from my perspective of killing is bad and wrong. And then Margot Anand, who was visiting us then, said something. It's like, that's, thinking of something as bad and wrong is duality thinking, which again is the cause of all suffering. The tantric perspective is awareness, being aware of what's going on, and then taking action, maybe a new action that allows you to grow in the perspective of your true authentic self. So it's like, you can look at this as just life is a playground, and we're here to learn what we can, and we do the best we can with what we knew at the time, and we continue to have more awareness, we awaken, we raise our vibration, we grow, and we take new action, which allows us and to create a better experience for ourselves and for others. And so then I kind of came from a perspective of accepted that that was what was necessary, or what was my role at that day and time, and that I've grown and learned from it. And now, and one of the things that was kind of cool too is I saw my future lives. And just so you know, the future is bright indeed. It's like I actually experienced the future where there's no more violence, there's no more killing, there's no more poverty, and there's a love and acceptance that happens because we as a country, right, not just country, as a world, raise our vibration, raise our level of acceptance. And I get to come back in many lives. I felt that I get to be a champion for love now. I get to take all my warrior training, and I take all those lessons I learned, and then now be a force for good, my view of good. Anyway, so awareness and action, that's the key. And so we talked about, emotional healing begins with forgiveness. And I think the final thing is love is the answer. So we can't forgive someone if we're in resistance to them. We can't accept something until we forgive it. And then we can't love until we accept. So, one of the things that we're most hard on in the world is ourselves. And so I really encourage people to learn how to forgive, accept, and love themselves. If we do that, if we just do that, that will change the world, because the outer world is just purely a reflection of our inner world. And that was one of the things that I learned, is I get to fully forgive, accept, and love myself. And it's a practice, right? Because I'm a judgment-making machine. I judge myself, I judge others. That's my natural state. And so I'm always interrupting, first through awareness, like, oh, look what I'm doing. Let's shift that. Let's take action of love and acceptance, and let me continue to grow that muscle. Let me continue to learn and grow. That's why I'm here. And I think that's why we're all here. And so, if we all do that, we'll raise the vibration of the planet, and it's happening. We're in a spiritual revolution right now, and we're all taking part in it in our own unique, amazing ways. So my message is appreciate diversity. If you want to make the world a better place for yourselves and your children's children and the future, love is the answer, and acceptance is the key. Namaste.